There's not been any discussion.
We'll be back in session.
No, there hasn't been, because I don't think
We just finished number 8 under our unfinished business.
They haven't considered it.
Number 1, the limo discussion under new business has been postponed. So it's number 2. That brings us to number 3, which is a discussion of the current lighting ordinance.
Move to discuss.
Second.
Well, now what have I done?
The reason I brought this to the table is I read through this. I had been discussing this with Chief Hyatt also, and there's no provisions in this ordinance at all giving anybody authority to make any changes for safety reasons to the public. Any changes to this states that it has to go back to probably planning, City Planning Commission, Historic District. Because there's several places in town that I feel like, from having been law enforcement, and then Earl feels like being current law enforcement, that may need some, and I hate to use the word, but additional lighting, but more powerful lighting. But this would restrict any further lumens, I believe it's called, in here, to be placed at those designations. There's just no authority there's no provision for anybody to make those changes. Yes, ma'am.
Can you be specific on an area? What do we?
Not right now.
Okay.
It's
So in other words, what you're saying is under submittals, if the police department determines that we need more lighting in a specific area, they wouldn't be the applicants to go before planning?
I don't see any need for them to go to planning. If it's a safety issue, they should be able to address it directly.
But would it be changing, because I know we got to change so that everything has to be shielded and lighting down and all this?
Well, that's why I'm bringing it to the table, so y'all can talk about it.
But that's what I mean. Would it be going against what this is saying about the no glare and all that?
Well, as opposed to putting another fixture in, just the addition of a stronger bulb would be the
Would it be
recommendation.
shielded?
If it's shielded now, it'd be shielded when the bulbs change.
So what you're saying is the problem is the lumens, that there are certain places we need more lumens.
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. May I ask our planning chair?
Go ahead.
Is this something that should go before planning to change that, or can we do it here? Planning did a lot of work on this.
I know they did.
Yeah.
But that provision was left out.
Right. So, would y'all prefer looking at it, or do you want us to just go ahead and do something here?
As your planning commissioner, we would be willing to do the work for you and bring the recommendations to you if that's what you want. I mean, it originated from us, and it went through several public hearings in planning. It came to this table, and it went through a lot of public hearings, and we had talked to Earl at that time, but he didn't, know, I guess, what the need was going to be. Maybe the need is greater now, and we would be glad to do that for you. Or if this is something you just want to do on your own, let you do that too.
Okay, if we just need a variance for certain specific areas, I mean, this is what we're talking. We're not talking all over the place. We're talking in a few specific locations. Seems to me that would be a variance, and we could probably just add a variance clause.
It wouldn't be a variance clause.
Okay, what's the word?
You would have to grant someone the authority to make that decision of when this doesn't apply, if that's what you want to do. If you want the chief of police to be able to say, this is a safety issue, I'm going to increase the number of lumens at XYZ location, then you'd have to grant him the authority to do that.
Okay, and could that authority be autonomous, or would he need a second opinion, or what?
Well, that's what you would have to decide.
What is legally and properly the best way?
Well, that is something you, as a council, is going to actually have to decide.
You were no help.
You could make him go back to planning. You could make him come to you. You could make him just do it himself. The quickest way would be for the chief of police or someone else, whoever you would pick, to be able to autonomously make that decision. But
I'd like to see an autonomous decision, but with a heads up to somebody. You know, council or planning, either one.
you could put a notice requirement in it then that after the bulb is changed or after the lumens is increased by whatever millions,
How about before?
well, then you're delaying it and it's not really
Okay.
autonomous. If you're going to make them report, we're going to do this, then you're
Well, you know,
somebody
pick up-
looking over their shoulder.
I don't mean a long thing. I mean like picking up the phone and saying, we've determined this park needs to have more lighting. We're going to deal with it. That's all I mean.
It's up to you how you do it.
Mr. Burton.
Mr. Mayor, having yourself been in law enforcement and having had close communication with our current police chief, let me ask you your recommendation as to what should we add the police chief or the police department in here, or add a phrase in here that says under certain circumstances for public safety, the police department should also be, or even the fire department, but the police department in particular should be
I think
consulted.
the safety issue would go to the police department.
Okay.
I would be safe in saying that. Yeah.
I mean, would you feel comfortable adding something to this in that 7.XX.04? Just from your background, from police background.
What I'll do is I'll get with Chief Hyde again. We'll make a detailed list of where we think the lighting needs to be changed. And then we'll bring back you a detailed plan so you can look at it. Yes, sir.
I mean, the light fixtures themselves, I assume that they can handle larger bulbs or different arrangements that are, you know, for the existing fixture.
That's my understanding of it. I may be totally wrong, but my understanding, since the lumens in here have been set at
Yeah, not to exceed.
40 or
40,000?
something. Yeah.
not to exceed that. See, what happens is when, part of the discussion was that when you direct light in one direction, and mainly these are directed straight down, I had several problems with this whole ordinance due to the fact that a light is put up for safety issues for automobiles and pedestrians and citizens. Now, granted, you're going to have some leakage to some degree, but there's places it needs to be lit. It needs to be lit up more because just doing a spot that big on the road doesn't do anybody any good walking on the sidewalk that it doesn't cover. Or walking down the street. We've got a bunch of dark streets. Folks, we've got streets that are still dirt. So I know there's not much lighting on those. So I think it's a safety issue. And going back to whereas the citizens of Eureka Springs desire to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents, tourists, motorists, public, and pedestrians, that part I agree with. The night sky thing, I'd go with people first before the night sky. Just saying, it'll always be dark out there, but we'll get one person hurt because of inadequate lighting or something that we had a chance to fix. I think, Ms. Snyder, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Is it, and I don't know anything about the shields that are used, the little top things, is it possible, instead of having a shield that's so narrow it shoots straight down, that we could get a broader one to let it spread out?
Well, it says shielded and hooded on 7XX03 number B. I think it gives a definition of.
Right, but that's what I'm
Shielded
saying.
is.
So rather than put a brighter light, if we made it a slightly less downward shield, this would let it spread to a wider area while keeping the lumens down.
That would be something the council would have to decide on. By this, it says it can only shine straight down.
Well, in these
Get it
specific
downward.
places, and I know exactly what you mean about dark streets, we might want to do like a variance type thing.
Mr. DeVito.
Since the mayor's offered to meet with the chief of police and come up with a list of areas, we don't know if it's 1 or 100 lights or what it is. I'd feel a little better postponing this until when we have the more information
Give me time
regarding
to get more.
how many lights are involved.
Mr.
that a motion? That's a motion.
Second.
David?
I would just like to see, because it seemed like this was public hearings and it came out of planning and everything, that the mayor and the chief at least consult the chair of planning in this process before it comes back.
Okay. I don't agree with that. Okay.
I have one more question, and that is, who is responsible for changing those bulbs?
It would be the city.
Who physically does it? I mean, does the
It
city,
depends on, since we have Carolyn Swipco here, we would probably
they
have
come
to-
and do that at your request? Is that how the city does that?
Yeah,
I'm getting
that's
nod,
my
okay.
understanding of it.
Well, there's still one at out at the top of Oil Springs Road too, by the
Yeah.
way.
Call
I mentioned
There's
that.
several.
Dwayne, Dwayne calls the company that needs to take care of it.
Mr. Evans keeps us reminded of what's out. So, if the council wants us to go to planning and ask their permission to do this, then it's
No, not ask, just include them in the process, not ask
okay.
permission.
That wasn't a motion.
That wasn't a motion at all.
No, that was just a comment I made.
Can we restate the motion? So,
Mr. DeVito made a motion to postpone, and Mr. Perkypile seconded.
okay, that's a motion for the table. Any further discussion? Mr. Burke?
Postpone until the mayor can consult with the police chief.
Okay, we should have it by next meeting.
Okay.
To save time. Okay, any further discussion on it? If not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next meeting. Brings us to number 4, the taxi issue, as added to the agenda earlier. Motion to discuss. Second?
Second.
Floor is open. Mr. Mitchell.
First thing I want to do is thank the clerk for all the work and the research she put into in putting forth a very large packet that goes back to 1969, the franchise. It made the most interesting reading, and I think that's what it is basically a lot of history. It seems to me the issue before council tonight is more directed to the application of abundant taxi service to provide a service within the city limits of Eureka Springs, and the awarding of a certificate of necessity, which is similar to what the current taxi service has, based on reading all of that data. And we have, at the last council meeting, accepted, based on looking at YouTube again today, the folder that we had received from Abundant Taxi as their application. Likewise, I see we received tonight verification by oath that that is in fact their application, so that takes care of one of the issues in Arkansas code. We've heard a lot of citizens discuss the fact that the current taxi service has been here for many years, and the gentleman that operates it, David White, is an esteemed citizen of this community and should be regarded in that light, and I agree with him 100%. But the issue tonight is, does Eureka Springs need a second taxi service, and is necessity there? And after listening to everybody, after receiving multiple phone calls, after discussing the issue with a lot of businesses, I am of the mind that the necessity for a second taxi service is evident.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else? Ms. Zeller.
Well, I agree with David. Most of the testimony we heard tonight, what the purpose of this hearing was to establish that Abundant Taxi was capable of conducting a taxi service in town, and they were willing to do it, and they were qualified to do it. I did not hear anyone come forth with any evidence that they were not qualified to do this, that they were underfunded, ill-equipped, or inefficient, or anything. All I heard was that David White was a nice guy, and those were local people that were happy with him, and I'm not contesting that. What I'm concerned about is the service that we are giving our tourists. Now, I've had a lot of emails from people, and I've been on this council off and on for a while, and I think this subject, with the exception of that DPR thing, is the most emails I ever got, with people saying, please, we need another taxi service. And these were all business owners. They were people that deal with tourists and tourism. I've heard from tourists that were unhappy. The Chamber of Commerce sent out an email about a horror story they got from a woman who was unhappy. And so clearly, even though the locals are delighted with David, the tourists need another service. We really do. I think we've established from all the dialogue that all of us have gotten that we do need another taxi service. And Abundant Taxi, the prospectus they gave us, it was extraordinarily complete. It was more than we've ever had from, I think, any business owner. And quite frankly, it sticks in my crawl that anybody, this is a democracy, and that anybody should have to come to a city council and ask permission to start a business. Just kind of sticks in my crawl. This is not like a liquor license. This is somebody who has the money and the willingness and the time and is willing to devote the effort to starting a business. And somehow or other, and I don't know how the state of Arkansas ever got into this, we have to decide whether he should be able to do this. Do we like the idea of it? I'm sure we would love to have public hearings on whether we should have another T-shirt shop, whether we really need another Italian restaurant. We certainly don't need another bed and breakfast. All of us who have ever owned businesses would love to have this. But I don't think this man wants to do this. We've had a lot of testimony that people need this service, that it's really lacking. And I think we should go ahead and grant him his certificate and let him get into business before the season starts. And I would like to make that a motion. I make a motion that we grant Mr. Strucy, Abundant Taxi, their certificate of necessity and what is the other one?
Public convenience.
And public convenience, and allow them to get into business.
I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded. We still need that discussion. Go ahead.
Over the last several meetings, we've had a lot of people coming to public comment in regards to the situation we're dealing with right now. And what I've been mentally comparing are the responses of business people versus locals. Locals are all thrilled and happy. Everything's going fine and dandy. We don't need anything else. Business people are almost totally contrary to that. Having worked across the street Friday and Saturday nights for 12 years, I see what's needed. And that's why I said at the last meeting, it's nothing against David. It's not trying to put him out of business. It's a matter of there is need. And I want to clarify a few things. The word franchise keeps coming up. Yes, David's been given a franchise. No, he hasn't. Yes, he was, and it was deleted. No, he wasn't. It was accidentally added. We can go back, and since I just got this packet tonight, I have no idea if that's covered in there. But regardless of whether it's a franchise or not, a franchise does not mean a monopoly. Yes, we have to protect our own. But that also means in order to protect our own, we have to protect our livelihoods, which means we have to protect tourism. The need is there. Like I said, just from being downtown on the weekend nights, it's there. These people have said they're going to live in town. They will be available 24/7, 365 days a year. Whether it's a slow week or a busy weekend, it's not going to make a lot of difference. And one of the big things that people aren't thinking about in regards to taxi needs is that people drink 7 days a week. They don't just drink Friday and Saturday or on festivals. They drink 7 days a week. Boy, in these roads out here, we don't need drunk drivers. Aside from the fact it's illegal, it's even more dangerous in this town than anywhere. I still think this is something that we need more of. Whether David would improve whatever problems apparently there are. I have never used a taxi out here. I haven't used a taxi since Washington, D.C. So that's been 40 plus years. But it's really amazing. The difference, the business owners and the visitors say they aren't getting this proper business. Locals are saying it's nothing but great business. I think when you have as many business people come in as have come in during the last several meetings and say we have got to have more in this line of work, I think that in itself spells out the fact that there is need.
Anybody else? Mr. Burkeville.
The public hearing we had was not and should not have been intended to be an indictment of EUREKA Taxi. It was never intended to be that. It was simply a matter of following through the state law where it said EUREKA Taxi, which is our existing taxi service, had to be notified that another taxi service wanted to do business in the city. And it's absolutely not an indictment. No reflection on EUREKA Taxi's service, current service at all. I've also received quite a few emails from business people, and I think the main concern is the especially on the weekends. I've heard some folks describe it as taking the cream of the crop, so to speak, on the weekends. And I think that's not really the way to look at it. The way to look at it is if there's a need for additional taxis, then on the weekends, then if they're not there, then we're not serving. I say we, then there's just not enough taxi service available. So just based upon that, I would be inclined to agree with the application.
Any further? Okay. Clerk will reread the motion.
Zeller made a motion to grant abundant transportation a certificate of necessity and public convenience. Actually, it's public convenience and necessity.
And there was a second?
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay. No further discussion. We'll go ahead and vote on it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Final action, so it really, if you're approving it, not to be voted. Roll
Okay. Okay, we can do that.
Sure don't have any duplicates here. Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Zeller,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. DeVito,
Yes.
Mr. Perkins,
Aye.
Mr. McClung,
Yes.
6-0.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us into the agenda setting. Mr. Mitchell, go ahead.
I went over and visited the owners of Sherwood Court today, and they would like to be on the agenda for an issue similar to the Nellie Clark with backed up sewer when they came back to their business in January, and evidently they've been in a lot of discussion with Director of Public Works and I think the mayor, and
That is
they
correct.
need to be, they've asked to be on the agenda so they can present their, and that's what I'm bringing forward.
The second?
Sherwood.
Second.
Okay. That one's on. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
To help Beverly out, I won't miss it this time, the Planning Commission recruitment.
Okay.
I'll second that.
That's
Still planning. Anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll close the agenda setting. Okay, I'm not listening. I'm not hearing anything from anybody else. So, Moves us on to council comments. Mr. DeVito, yes.
I'd like to thank all the hard work by the staff that made these awards possible for Eureka Springs. I think, as the gentleman said, we got more awards than any other city, regardless of size in the state. So that's a big here to all the hard work that's gone in on getting these awards for Eureka Springs.
Here, here.
Here, here.
Here. Yes.
Okay, Mr. McClung.
Nothing to add.
Mr. Mitchell.
I want to thank everybody that came out tonight for the public hearing, and I want to especially. Did you turn your microphone on? No, it's just. Oh, okay. Sorry. I wanted to thank everybody that came out for the public hearing tonight, and appreciate very much their input. And that's it.
Porcupine.
I also want to thank everybody for coming out for the public hearing. And I also want to thank Mr. White for his service, providing a taxi service for this city. And I want to let you know that this is not an indictment of your taxi cab service, of which I know very little. It is just, we appreciate. I can see that all your friends appreciate what you've done here, and would encourage you to continue to do so, and continue with your service.
Ms. Schneider.
I had a couple of our locals requested that city council deal with the gas prices because they're so astronomically high, and this just is not cool. It's been dealt with. They're coming down. Keep watching them. Oh, and I did want to add, when you check out the law, you might want to look in the right areas. In paraphrasing the law, it is illegal to interfere with a legal activity or a lawful activity. Hence, if you're banging your pots and pans to scare the deer away from the hunters, it's illegal. That's it.
Ms. Zeller.
I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, it was good.
I always have something to say.
Okay. I'll just have a few announcements in. Celebrate the Springs, April 27th, 9 a.m. The church processional Springs Blessing begins at Crescent Spring. 1 o'clock p.m. Rain Gardens, for the Springs. The Rain Garden How to Work workshop by Dr. Delia Hack. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. And Becky Roark of the Illinois Watershed Partnership at the Riders Colony at Dairy Hollow. 2 p.m. Hands-on rain garden planting with Becky Roark at Harmon Park. April the 28th is 9 a.m. Springs Walk with Springs Committee member and geologist Jim Helwig, PhD, beginning at Harmon Park. For more information and reservations, contact the Parks office at 479-253-2866. Also, on March the 13th, the Intrigue Theater special benefit for Turpentine Creek at 7:30 p.m. I'm assuming that's going to be at the auditorium. Where is it? Okay, Gavioli Chapel. March the 15th will be the Spring Antique Show preview at Inn of the Ozarks. March the 16th, St. Patrick's Day Parade. March the 16th and 17th, the Spring Antique Show at Inn of the Ozarks. March the 16th, the Drumming in the Park at Basin Park. March the 23rd, the 23rd Annual Kite Festival at Turpentine Creek. March the 24th, Beer Can Show at Inn of the Ozarks. That's what it says, folks. Beer Can Show at Inn of the Ozarks. Can't make that up.
It's a big deal.
And that's all I have. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.